Hello and welcome to the INDYCAR Debrief, where we're taking you inside the 2021 NTT IndyCar Series. And this week, we're going to take a look back at the season we've had so far and recap our INDYCAR Fantasy League picks for this weekend's all-important season finale in Long Beach. I'm Jen Horsey with Racer Magazine's Laurence Foster and INDYCAR driver Conor Daly. Guys, we're heading into the final race. There's 3 contenders in this championship at this point, and Alex Palou is the man to beat. I'm not great at this math. He only needs to finish like 11th or better to clinch this thing. Laurence, what are his chances?
That's right. Yeah, he is 35 points ahead of Pato O'Ward and is 48 points ahead of Josef Newgarden. So if Patto has the perfect weekend, as in he gets the pole, he leads a lap, he leads the most laps, he wins the race, he gets his 54 points. Alex has still only got to finish 11-4 better. And for Josef to win the championship, basically, Josef has to have the perfect weekend, and we've got to have a couple of meteors strike Alex and Patto on the first lap. But at the same time, it's one of these situations, I think, where there is a real sort of clarity of purpose for Patto. He knows exactly what he's got to do. You know, Alex may be sort of into this, where am I lying? What do I need to do? Looking at the permutations. And Conor, I'm interested to know, I mean, obviously you'd want to have a points lead, but are we maybe ruling Patto out of this prematurely?
I don't know about that, but I mean, I'm not sure if people remember, but I actually did win championships at one point. I knew what it was like to go into the final round with a lead, and it's certainly much nicer than having to fight from behind. I think realistically, though, Alex Palou has been so consistent. I mean, even Patto, I think, said this week that it's his championship to lose, and I think the wildest thing to think about, though, is like Alex has had some wild issues, like at random races, you know, Indy GP, and he's had engine penalties for qualifying, you know, stuff like that, and so you never know what can happen. Like there's still a wild amount. Like Long Beach Term 1 is very aggressive. It can always be pretty chaotic. And Long Beach, you know, the pit strategy as well. Lots of strategies work. Pit lane is super tight. So there's so many different things that can happen here. But I would much rather be in Alex's position than Pato's position. I mean, I think those guys, for some reason, the McLaren team were definitely struggling in Laguna Seca. It seemed like in the race, and there were a lot of interesting, difficulties that a lot of us ran into. But yeah, I think the amount of experience as well that Chip Ganassi Racing has, you know, going for a championship. I mean, I don't really remember the last time, you know, the Arrow Schmidt Peterson team or whatever when they were coming down to the final round in a championship battle. So. I know Hinch back when he drove for those guys. I'm sure he was in the top 5 in the championship at some point. But realistically, what we've seen for championship battles has usually been Ganassi versus Penske, and so now there's a whole new team involved, which is great for the sport. But we know that Ganassi has obviously won a million championships, and they know exactly what to do. And they've got 4 horses in the race as well, whereas McLaren's got 2.
Okay, so obviously we're talking a lot about the championship leaders. Championship is to be decided this coming weekend, but there are a lot of potential other people in this field who can play spoiler. What about some of those?
One guy definitely to watch out for is Alexander Rossi. We didn't race at Long Beach last year, but Alex won the 2 prior to that. He's basically the 2-time and defending Long Beach Grand Prix winner, and he's a guy as well who's, obviously last weekend, as we'll come to, was a little bit of an aberration, but he's definitely picking up form, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe making it a 3-peat this weekend. What do you think, Conor?
Yeah, I mean, Rossi, there's no doubt about it. He's very, very good at Long Beach. Even I think he really should have had 3 Long Beach race wins as well. He had that mechanical failure that one year as well. So we know he's going to be very, very good. But obviously in this new era of IndyCar racing with the aero screen, we've seen Alex struggle a little bit more than I think a lot of people have expected. So, he's been on the podium now recently, which is good. He's been fighting up at front. Obviously, Laguna was a bit of a weird deal there. I mean, racing is hard, and racing can be, angry at you sometimes. So these things happen. But we know he's been really, really strong and on form. So I expect both the Andretti cars to be fast. The two hot hands right now, Colton and Alex. it's going to be hard to beat those guys for sure, because we obviously know Colton, local Southern California boy. He's going to be really, really good there as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting though, because we haven't been here in a long time, and a lot of teams, might surprise you, and a lot of teams might surprise you on the bad side. They might be like, oh wow, we're kind of missing some time here. So I'm very, very curious to see, what everyone's sim development has been over the last, few weeks. We've been on the simulator at Long Beach, and we have an idea of what we want to do, and how has the surface changed in 2 years? I mean, these are public streets, so what has been going on down there? We're not really sure. What has Formula Drift done to the track in the last week? We're just not really sure. So there's a lot of question marks, which is great, but it's also thankfully a good schedule for us. Again, we have the practice on Friday where we can think about it. I think that helped a lot of us in Laguna Seca. Certainly our team, we were able to think about it and make some, good decisions for the second day. So yeah, it's a proper race weekend schedule again, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which is nice.
There is I will tell you from experience from last weekend, wrecking the track for you guys with Formula Drift, there was a lot of rubber down. Wow, it really sticks when it's had almost 2 years to rub off. And also there seems to be some sort of new tarmac patch into 9, because our guys kept hitting it and spinning out. So I don't know if it's on your line, but there is some sort of new patch in there for sure. Like, tell me about that. It's been a year and a half or whatever since you've been at this course. It's usually in April. It was just been a crazy time that we've missed some of these races. How do the street courses evolve?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question as well, because again, an entirely different time of year. We're usually here in the spring, April. It can be cool in the mornings. It also can be like swelteringly hot here as well in Long Beach. So, this weekend, I think the weather's going to be great. Obviously, it's Southern California, but Laguna Seca was actually quite cool. And for us, some of those sessions, even the warm up before the race, was kind of misting. So it's definitely noticeably different how we're running these races at a different point in the year. And Long Beach wise, I'm not really sure, because I've only ever been there in the spring. You know what I mean? So it's going to be really interesting. And I haven't driven there since 2017. So it's been almost a half a decade since I've been at Long Beach driving, and it was a very, very different time back then as well. But it's such a great track. I think they realistically do a great job of taking care of it no matter what. I think the city and the event organizers know how important Long Beach is, and how how much of a historic race that it is. But yeah, so many things have changed. I mean, a completely different era, it almost feels like now, compared to when I was there, at least. But yeah, it's something that, what are we going to find that's different? Are all the walls in the right place? Are all the curbs the same? Are all, what's realistically, you're looking for the smallest things that might change, how we're going to go. And the cars are a little bit heavier now. What's the vision in the hairpin, with the aero screen? Like, is it going to be a little bit different? There's a lot of things that I think, it kind of makes it an exciting season finale, because of the fact that, it's kind of been a while.
Yeah, I can't wait to see racing back on the streets of Long Beach. I really missed it last year, and it seems very strange that it's September that it's happening, but I'm very excited, and it's cool that it's going to be the season ender. So I also want to talk a little bit about last week. Last weekend's racing saw 2 of the contenders knocked out of the championship story. And like, what happened to Alex? Like, it looked like it would be his redemption weekend until it really wasn't. That's right.
It was a Colton Herta masterclass. The guy was on the pole. The guy basically, I believe the expression is, stunk up the show, given his dominance. Led over 90 laps, and we did have that fleeting moment where we thought, "Hang on a minute, is Alex going to be in the fight?" But Conor, your take on that, Alex and Colton not quite coming together, but how do you view that incident between Alex and Colton?
So what I thought was really interesting is, we had the warm-up that I mentioned earlier in the morning, and it was very misty, and we were out on track, but it was not very grippy, and we tried to make some setup changes. You want to get the practice pit stops in. You want to try to make your final adjustments for the car for the race. And oddly enough, I think as soon as we took the green flag, there were a lot of people who were immediately struggling for rear grip, a lot of traction. I mean, turn 2, Felix Rosenqvist spins right in front of me, like lit up the rears as if as if there was almost a wet track. And I think so many people got that loose moment exactly where Alex did, but he happened to be inside of Colton at the same time. And a lot of us had the exact same issue, but we weren't side by side with someone like that. So it was a really interesting track condition to start out with. Like the first set of tires, a lot of people were struggling. Like I know our balance was way different from from the warm up and from the practices previously. So not really sure what happened there, but again, the surface at Laguna is so low grip. So, when you're trying to go for that position, you have to use a little bit more wheel lock if you're on the inside to try to get the car to rotate a little bit. I mean, that's all it took. And it's because he was right next to him and he slapped him a little bit, then it's slapped him the other way. So it was, honestly, I don't think you can blame either of those guys. Like they both went for it. It's just, racing is hard. So sometimes it doesn't work out for you. And sometimes, these things happen, and it happens to the best of everyone. You know what I mean? Alex Rossi, one of the best racers out there on the grid. So it was a shame to see, that for him, because obviously the Andretti team had such a great, qualifying effort with those guys, and their cars are clearly pretty strong there. At least those two guys for sure. But yeah, there were a lot of questionable moves, I would say, throughout the day, as we saw several people making some, contact with others, and a lot of people got away with a lot of stuff after I saw the highlights later in the day. I didn't know that many people spun and hit each other and were all over the place. And it was an interesting day for sure.
And a couple of things there as well. Obviously, Alex Palou doing exactly what he needed to do, that solid second. But Romain Grosjean there giving us a bit of a show towards the end, taking a podium. And if it wasn't for a bit of lap traffic, maybe would have been there on the tail of Alex towards the end.
Yeah, I think Grosjean's strategy was bold, honestly, because I mean, the red tires at the end, I didn't think the red tires in general were going to last that long, and he had so much pace at the end as well. But why not go for it? I mean, if you're in that position and they seem to be working the tires quite well. A lot of the times this year, that team, the 51 car in general, has been working the tires really, really well. And they've been able to kind of use them long into the stint, certainly at Gateway as well, even the short oval. I mean, a lot of us were blown away by what Romain was doing. And yeah, I think the strategic side, like if from the driver's perspective, I'll be totally honest with you, I had no idea what people were doing. Not a clue where we were in strategy. The team just, the team is running that. When you have such a long green flag stint, it's very difficult to kind of tell what people's strategies were. So when I was in the car, my team was like, look, there's a lot of people on different strategies. We're just kind of going to keep doing what we're doing here. And, we had to save fuel and save tires. And, there were a lot of people that ended up doing the 4-stop strategy, which was we thought was going to be a little bit aggressive. And it worked for a lot of people, worked for Josef, worked for several other folks that were, that ended up rotating towards the front because the tires were wearing so quickly. So, it was one of those races where honestly it felt like you really weren't pushing for the majority of the race because you're trying to save your tires, trying to save some fuel, trying to make some strategies work. Because when you got on the reds, like for us, for sure, they didn't last as long as we were hoping. We thought, and they went off and dropped off a cliff. So it was one of those things where you had to really react pretty aggressively, and people started undercutting and then overcutting. And then there was just so many different things that were playing out. Like when Josef pitted at the beginning of the race, I said, how is this guy pitting already? Are they really doing 4 stops right out the gate? And it was, it obviously worked for those guys. So I don't think the same thing will happen in Long Beach. Obviously street course tire, very, very different from what we have in Laguna Seca, but it almost actually made me feel like I was in a GP3 race again, saving tires back in the day and trying to make sure we had some rubber at the end.
Well, I mean, certainly when it comes to Fantasy League, it was kind of like I was calling a different race. Laurence, how did we do?
I'm very glad you asked. Do you know what? When we make our choices, we always say, make sure you back them up with the podium. If I'd have I basically chose the top 3 finishers as part of my 4-man team, but for some reason didn't put Grosjean third on the podium. If I'd have done that, I would have been the highest score overall. Just saying. But yeah, the difference there was that all-important third podium spot and Romain Grosjean. So anyway, smugness over. Onto the overall scores. And if we have a decent weekend, maybe we can break 2,000. But Kurt Grimsley, he continues leading the overall points, but with only a 63-point lead. He's in the same position there as Alex Palou. It isn't done and dusted yet for Kurt in the overalls.
I mean, technically, it's maybe not done and dusted for you, but I'm going to call that a clinch. I think the battle left here is for second place. Connor, you could get this, and you DNS'd around. Like, I've entered every round, and I think you can still beat me.
I have DNS'd twice, I think. So, and you know what's very funny? I actually thought I did way better than the scores that were just displayed, because I looked at the result sheet and I was like, well, I know I definitely picked Colton. And I know, like, I thought I had a lot of the guys in the top 10, and I was like, maybe they didn't finish as high as I thought. So I thought I picked some good ones because I picked after the first practice session and I saw what was going on. But I think this time I'm definitely going to wait before, like, 10 minutes before the race, as you said, the last second. I'm going to have all my research out. I'm going to have my grid sheets. What tires are we starting on? How's the strategy going to work? And I'm really going to try to beat you, Jen. I think it would really capitalize on a tough season and a failure to my brain to remember the right things. It would be a great way to finish the season.
I mean, you kind of said it all yourself. I'm going to encourage you to wait till the absolute last minute and talk about your brain failing to remember things, and then maybe I have a chance.
Yeah, phone service is tough in Long Beach. You know what I mean? Like, we might not. Maybe I'm trying to upload and nothing's happening. We're trying to go to a hot spot. Maybe get some Wi-Fi somewhere.
Absolutely. Wait till all the fans get there. You got no Wi-Fi signal at all. I urge you to wait till the last possible. I mean, wait till you're in the car. I mean, that's the moment to do the pick, Connor. Maybe sometime after the green flag. I think my strategy here is going to be a sailboat strategy. I think I'm going to just. Laurence, why don't you tell us who you're going to recommend?
All right, two obvious ones to begin with. Patto and Josef Newgarden, purely because, okay, they're expensive, but these are two guys who know they've got to do one thing this weekend, and that is win. You can't say the same for Alex. So a couple of guys who are basically on all or nothing weekends. And then two pretty obvious ones as well. Alexander Rossi, the recent master of Long Beach, and a guy who's on a bit of a streak of form. And, what a way for him to end the season with a third straight Long Beach win. A bit of a sleeper as well, Will Power. He has won twice at Long Beach before. And I just wonder, even though it's teammate Newgarden in the championship battle, I just wonder whether Will could be Penske's spoiler. And then a couple of guys, Ryan Hunter-Reay, a former winner, and this his last race with Andretti. So who knows? What a way to go out on top! A decent result for Ryan before he moves elsewhere. And Sebastian Bourdais, he used to win for fun back in the Champ Car days. So maybe that sort of Long Beach muscle memory. Look out for a big one from Sebastian.
Okay, so I've got my notebook out. Laurence, I'm going to put you on the spot. Who are your picks? Who are my picks? Who are our picks?
Well, Patto, for reasons just mentioned, the guy's basically on a single strategy this weekend, which is just to win everything. Alex, because, again, the guy's got the previous. Sebastian, because we can afford him, and he has won in the past. And to make up our $100, we've put in Ed Jones. He is only $20. Connor, once again, we couldn't afford you. But Ed has had a couple of decent results recently, so he makes our 100.
All right, well, I'm excited to get to this weekend and see this championship decided, both the Fantasy League and also the actual IndyCar Championship. It's going to be lots of action this weekend. But before we get to the race, let's make sure you sign up for the IndyCar Series Fantasy Challenge driven by Firestone. Go to fantasy.indycar.com or join through the IndyCar app. Lots of great prizes still for individual race wins. And then don't forget to tune in and watch it all live, the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach on the streets of Long Beach, starting on Friday with practice on Peacock, Saturday practice and qualifying on Peacock and NBCSN, and then on Sunday the big race warm up at noon and the race starting at 3 p.m. I got a flight back and I think I might just make it to the race in time for the green flag. Very much looking forward to this season finale. For Connor, Laurence, and myself, thanks for joining us this season, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the Racer channel on YouTube or find us wherever you get your podcasts.